The 18 Strong Podcast, episode 120 with Brian Chandler from Anthem Fitness.
We always battle that. I just need to be in the weight room and that's it. And I mean, granted, that's very, very important to be a high-level athlete, but you have to check all of your movement boxes first.
Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, where you get direct access to the world's greatest experts on training harder, practicing smarter, and playing better golf. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pellizzero.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast. Hopefully, you had a wonderful Christmas if you celebrate Christmas. If not, happy holidays. And we are getting ready for the new year. And I'm expecting 2017 to be an incredible year for all of you bogey-proof golfers out there. I know that here at 18 Strong, we've got a lot of great things planned. We have a lot of great guests that are going to be coming on the show in 2017 that I cannot wait to share with you, especially a couple of the upcoming episodes that are just going to be phenomenal. We also are going to have some new official sponsors joining the show for 2017, so I can't wait to see where everything goes as we move forward into January and head into this next wonderful, wonderful year. On this episode, I have the pleasure of interviewing Brian Chandler from Anthem Fitness. And Brian, we had such a great conversation just about Brian and what he's doing, but specifically what kind of work he did most recently with a guy that you all know, Ryan Moore, who was just a phenom at the end of the year. He was a phenom as an amateur, but recently really kind of, I think, as most people would say, stepped up to the level that everyone anticipated he would be. You know, at the Ryder Cup, coming in so strong as a rookie, but doing so well at the Ryder Cup, winning a tournament, going to the end of the Tour Championship, neck and neck with Rory, and so many different great finishes towards the end of the year. And I think what many people don't know or understand is that Ryan had dealt with some physical issues that had bothered him the last several years that many of us didn't know about, but apparently it was something that was really kind of hindering his game. And Brian Chandler is the strength coach, the massage therapist that did a lot of the work with Ryan on his way to completely recovering and getting his body in shape. That he had some ankle issues that really hindered him and held him back from becoming the player that he needed to be and doing the things that his body needed to do. So in this episode, we're going to talk about what exactly they did to assess and figure out what was wrong with Ryan and what he had going on, and how Brian and Ryan Moore's other coaches like Troy Denton, how they kind of figured out where they wanted to go, what they wanted to do, and how they needed to do it in a short period of time so they could get Ryan back out on the course and competing, playing competitively. He never really was down and out with an actual injury that just kind of totally sidelined him, but they definitely took some time to backtrack and figure out what was going on and how they could fix him. And obviously we saw some incredible results from Ryan Moore towards the end of the year. So this episode, we not only talk about Ryan and what they did for him, but also how this applies to your game and how you can kind of figure out what your weakest link is and what are some of the things that you need to be doing in order to really kind of, as I like to say, bogey-proof your body. Some would say bulletproof your body, but really get things working the way that they need to work in order for your body to make the swings and play the game the way that you need it to be played. So I had an incredible time talking with Brian. Just such a nice, knowledgeable guy, and you can tell that he just has a passion for working with his golfers and every athlete that he works with. So I know you're going to enjoy this interview. You're going to get a ton out of it. I know I did just in our communication. So without further ado, here's Brian Chandler. Brian, welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast. It's great to finally get you on here, bud.
Thanks, man. I'm excited to be on. I'm a big fan myself.
Oh, I appreciate that. So yeah, not too long ago, I got an email from your buddy, Dr. Josh Satterley, and he's like, hey, I don't know if you read Brian's article on TPI, but his work with Ryan has been fantastic. I think it'd be a great show. And I read the article and did a little background research. And first of all, Ryan has had a phenomenal 2016. And then to see what you guys did was really, really cool. So I want to dig into a lot of the rehab type stuff that you guys went through, how you guys figured out what was going on. But first, just give us a little background on you, where you're working. I know you're out in Vegas with Dr. Satterley, but give us a little background on Brian Chandler.
So I'm actually a Floridian at heart. So I'm actually from South Florida, around Stewart/Jupiter area. I went to school out there at Florida Gulf Coast University on the West Coast. And then the day after graduation, I jetted out west and wanted something new. And Las Vegas was my spot. Kind of had an internship lined up. Didn't really know what I wanted to do in the training world. I just wanted to work with people, and that's kind of what I went off of, and moved out here with one of my best friends. And now, fast forward, was able to team up with a great team here with Dr. Satterley and everybody here at Anthem Fitness, and it's been a ton of fun. I'm a diehard golf fan at heart. The player, played all through junior golf and high school, and tried to play in college, and it's been a lot of fun to be able to do what I love every day.
Coming out of school, did you know that you wanted to go into kind of the golf world with your training?
It was really interesting. I actually was in a professional golf management program to teach golf, and that was kind of my first little intro into, a little bit of kind of like coaching, teaching in the kind of golf scene. And this was exactly when kind of like the TPI kind of boom was starting to come around. It was kind of getting a little bit more recognition with what Greg Rose and Dave Phillips were doing. So I heard about a lot of the training in golf, and it was starting to become something. At that point, we really didn't know what. And I kind of fell in love with coaching through the First Tee program when I was working with them, coaching kids how to play golf. So I knew I was very passionate about helping and coaching, and I realized that teaching the technical side of golf wasn't as fulfilling for me as kind of the stories that come along with when you coach somebody in the weight room or through a rehab injury or anything like that. That's kind of what I really stuck to and kind of was drawn to from the beginning.
Nice. And so you started working with at Anthem Fitness and started to, you guys work with some professional players, I assume kind of a little bit of everybody, right?
Yeah, we have. We have NBA players, Major League Baseball players, kind of all the weekend warriors of every sport, the sport of life itself that we always say in here. So we get a big variety of injuries in the clinic and also in the performance side on what the athletes need. So a big part of it is golf, just from what I'm trying to do with what I like working with golfers. But yeah, we get a really big range of athletes to come in.
And then you've got your background is strength and conditioning, massage therapy too, right?
Yes. Yep. So I kind of blend a little bit of the two, of the soft tissue stuff, primarily like a lot of the ART principles, just to kind of help me get a little bit more in depth with people on the front end when we're working with some mobility restrictions and stuff. So it's been a big key in getting me to do what I'm doing now.
Cool. All right, so I want to talk a lot today about Ryan and what you guys did, because like I said, he had such an incredible year. He's been touted as such a great golfer, but it seems like this year he really kind of broke out and has been really in the public eye. Obviously with the Ryder Cup, the John Deere, all of those different tournaments, the Tour Championship coming down to the end. So had to be super excited for you guys too, watching all that stuff. And were you at the Ryder Cup, or were you at some of those different events?
Yeah, I was at majority of them, especially the Ryder Cup. That was probably the best golf experience of my entire life, to just be a part of it, be on the first tee, walk the course, be with the team, and kind of really kind of see what goes down behind the scenes. And I wasn't even playing golf, and honestly, my hands were trembling on the driving range that morning, and it was just incredible.
I can't imagine. And, I can't imagine what Ryan was feeling when he stepped on that first tee. First time you ever hit a ball in a Ryder Cup had to be so nerve-wracking. But yes. So how did you get connected with him? How did this whole process start? And then we'll dig into what you guys did.
Yeah. So basically we have two facilities in Vegas. One in Henderson, which is kind of on the east side of town. And then we have a secondary location that's actually at TPC Summerlin. So it's on site at the golf course that we manage, and we designed it and kind of run it as we would want to run our east side location. So we have really good access to a lot of the web players that are out there. Obviously Ryan trains out or practices out there. So it's been a really fantastic home for us to kind of tap into some of the higher level performance golfers. And we were over there, and Ryan and Charlie Hoffman just walk in, and they were kind of checking it out. We just designed this beautiful multi-million-dollar facility that it looks amazing. We have any functional piece of equipment you can dream of, they have it. And so it's a big playground for us to work with these guys. And they were just coming in, strolling in, checking it out. And we were just talking to them, well, this is kind of what we do. And it kind of starts with assessment process and kind of diving into how the process even starts. And Ryan has been dealing with previous injuries. And he, from the get-go, really felt that there was something physical stopping him from kind of just reaching what his potential was, which back in his amateur career in 2004, 2005, he had that type of feeling of what great feels like. So that's been a really good measure for us to kind of say, okay, back when you won everything you tried, the US everything. That was the most impressive year of golf that I can really find. And so he's very specific and kind of knows what great feels like. So when he got to the point over the past 5 years of dealing with these kind of nagging injuries and soreness and pain when he's playing, he was kind of drawn to us like right away to say, hey, like, I've tried to get a lot of help, and I don't know what's wrong with and how it applies to my golf swing. So it was kind of a really easy conversation to say, oh, this is what we do, and clearly he was looking for it.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I know you're probably won't be able to share too much just based on some patient confidentiality type stuff, but what had he tried before, and then maybe what was a little different about your approach that really sparked him?
So yeah, basically when we started going over everything, it kind of just started with training. I think his first initial thought process was, well, he's getting a little bit older now. He's been on tour for a while, and he thinks he needs to almost just kind of rejuvenate his fitness and think that, hey, maybe it's a weakness problem. And which in part I think is true and to some degree, but he never, in my opinion, got a full head to toe assessment to kind of really see how he functions overall as a human, not necessarily a golfer, but just how do you function? And nobody really even, and I honestly think the biggest, the differentiator, honestly, in my opinion, is the communication. So identifying the limitation or problem is step one in any athlete, right? That's why we assess people, but really explaining to them, hey, this is what we found. This is how it affects your golf swing. And also working with his swing coach, Troy Denton, out of Dallas, and kind of really, we always talk about the body swing connection, and we couldn't have done honestly a better job of doing that as a team to figure out, hey, what's going on in his swing that was actually causing the pain in the first place. So when we kind of got down to it, the swing was just as part of the problem as what his body was doing. So we had to tackle it on both sides.
Yeah, I read that part in your article, and I definitely want to talk about Troy and what you guys did with TrackMan. I know you guys looked at a lot of numbers and just his body. What did you initially find? Again, share what you can, and if there's something I asked that you can't share, by all means. What did you guys initially find in kind of your assessment that was like, ooh, okay, that's probably a big factor there. That might be the weak link that we've been looking for.
Yeah. So the coolest part when you work with a team, especially this was kind of a newer experience at this level, was the kind of the communication. TPI does a good job kind of educating on their level 1 seminar on what I call internal rotation of the hip is not what a swing coach calls left internal rotation of the hip. So it was a good learning experience to kind of, when he says he's getting under it and all these terms, and I'm like, okay, well, explain further, like what, because my lens is not a swing technical coach, even though I know a lot about the golf swing at this point, but I'm not an expert by no means. So we really had to sit down and say, okay, what do you want him to do in your golf swing first? What's the goal? And basically he was getting into a position that would really kind of like slide into his kind of post leg, and he would have this kind of pelvic stall getting underneath it. His increase in side bend in his hips was way too much, and then he would kind of throw his hands at it. which would mean a squeal out shot to the right. And it was a very, very kind of a weak cut shot that took off tons of distance and just really killed him overall. So once we identified the goal, I use K-Vest myself as far as getting some kinematic data on him to really kind of, see what the 2D videos can't see. And right away, I mean, it was his rotation through impact on his pelvis, and the amount of side bending was really mind-blowing on how much pressure and stress he was putting on his hip joints. And it was just causing a lot of issues down his entire chain, especially to his ankles, which was where our original problem was.
And when you say side bending, are you talking about side bending of the trunk? So like as he's rotating into his shot, right side bend?
So thinking about pelvic side bending, so not necessarily torso,
Okay.
But he would make up a lot of extra motions with his upper body side bend to compensate. So tons of stiffness, tightness, complaints of his lats and serratus, like all his kind of trunk and torso musculature was just getting hammered because it was making up and doing this kind of contorted move just because his hips can't get out of the way. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the pelvis alone, as he's coming through impact, his right side would get so low, right? So I like to see the pelvis a little bit more level as he's going through rotation in his hips, mm-hmm. To get proper posterior tilt and rotation, to get his glutes firing and all those good stuff. And he just wasn't doing that. So he put a crazy amount of pressure on his left trochanter, and actually the real issue was actually down in his ankle. The amount of inversion in his left ankle was incredible on what he had to do, and just put crazy amounts of stress on his ligaments and all the tendons and on his ankle joint in general. And it caused a lot of irritation to the point where he would pretty much limp after the last round back to the car and just be, his ankle's throbbing. So wow. That's kind of how it started. And we started from the ground up and worked up and found what was going on in the hips. But, the chicken or the egg type of thing we always talk about, like the bad swing was causing the ankle to hurt, but the bad ankle was actually causing the hip to do that. And so we really just sat down and tackled it from both ends. Like, let's just fix both and we should be okay. But yeah, that's kind of how it started as far as identifying, all right, what's he doing in his golf swing that you want him to do, or he's not doing. And I'll try to piece together the physical side and see if it's something that if it is physically related or not.
I love that. And I like how earlier on you said something about first just getting him to understand how he's moving as a human. And I think that's something that we have really started to, as I interview more and more people like yourself that are, in the tops of the fitness profession, the rehab profession. I just went to the FRC continuing education course, which I saw that you've been through with Dr. Spina. And so much of it boils down to, as Dr. Spina would say, we got to make stuff work nice. We got to make their joints work nice. And if it's not working nice, it doesn't matter if he's a guy who sits behind a desk or if he's the number one golfer in the world. If his ankle doesn't work right the way that a human ankle should, I don't care if it's his golf swing or if it's him walking up a flight of steps, something's going to be irritated. So I would assume that you guys then, what did it look like when you then first brought him in day one after the assessments are done? Where'd you start?
Yeah, so basically I do I do this for, it doesn't matter if you're a tour player or you are a weekend warrior that just wants to get better. My assessment process is probably at least 3 hours long at this point, to just collect data. Like, I want information. I need to learn just as much about them as they think they know about themselves, which it can be challenging. So I do a kind of full head to toe. I use a lot of assessments that I think are honestly all professionals that work with athletes need to use. I know we kind of put assessments in boxes, like, okay, if you're a medical provider, you do this assessment, or if you're a fitness, you need to do the FMS and everything else, which they're all great tools. I use TPI power testing on non-golfers and even non-rotational athletes. It's just great information to see how they function overall. So for me, the more tests and assessments, the better. So when I sit down and go through it all, it highlights itself. I can see right away, okay, like, you really don't produce power and strength here. You have a ton of mobility restrictions here. Maybe it's a control issue. Maybe it is a stability issue. But basically, as soon as he walks in, we do all movement stuff first. So it included We did FMS, Y balance, SFMA. We run through a whole SFMA with him, and kind of just see how he functions. And then we went through the TPI strength and power testing to kind of see where his output is. I already had the KVS data at that point because I kind of wanted to see what is he currently like before I even touch him, or see. I want to get the purest form data. And so once we had the KVS data and all the movement screens done, we also had his TrackMan data with Troy, so I can actually see what his body does to make that club face do what it does. And then from there, we just kind of go through and say, okay, here's all of our movement data. What's going on? And I just break it out, kind of the whole, similar to a joint by joint approach to see, does he have proper function? Which is to me one of the most important parts is not only is somebody flexible or mobile or can touch their toes or can't touch their toes, how much control do they have, which really was a big takeaway for me from the FRC course with Dr. Spina. I do just as much active range testing as I do passive range testing. And I think that was something I missed when I first came on scene and was trying to help people move better and function better. Is just because you have passive ankle dorsiflexion does not mean you have proper ankle motions in your golf swing. So if you do a half kneeling dorsiflexion test like we all do in TPI, does that really mean that his ankle can dorsiflex under active control? And the more and more I test this, the fewer I see that actually have end range control over dorsiflexion, inversion, eversion, all the basic motions we need in golf or any rotational athlete. And so we were able to identify some really big key things for him that kind of glared at us, one from the KVS data, but also on a mobility standpoint and how much strength he had.
Yeah, that's a huge point, and something that my eyes were really open to as well going through that course is, you or I as the therapist or coach, we can push somebody into a rotation or into some sort of motion or hamstring flexibility, or somebody can grab a strap and pull their leg to the point where, yeah, great, it looks like your hamstring's super flexible, but can you hold it there? And they're like, no, not a chance. Yeah. And it's like, well, then you probably can't do that, in whatever motion you're trying to do. Now, you guys had a very limited amount of time, it sounds like, when you were working with Ryan, because this was all during the season. So I'm really intrigued by that because, most of the time when you have to fix something, people are like, oh, no, you can't do anything. You got to fix it before you can move on to this. And I know you were able to shut it down a little bit, but only a short period. What did that look like? How did that break out schedule-wise, and what did you guys kind of do on a daily basis?
Yeah, so when I first came on board with him, it was right before the PGA Championship. So this was we were gearing up for mentally one of the most important tournaments of the year. So I definitely had to go through some of those decisions on, okay, we had at that point 2 weeks until the PGA. I had 2 full weeks. He wasn't playing anything else. He wasn't going to go play anything before. He said, okay, I'll dedicate 2 weeks, basically every single day, whatever needs to happen to see if I can feel better. So at that point, being mid-season, strength, power, and all that stuff obviously goes out of the window for me as far as, one, what you could do physiologically in only 2 weeks. You need time to make people stronger. It's just how it is, and faster and more powerful. So to me, none of those really kind of came into my head, even on the front end. And it was purely on, okay, how do I get this guy to move better, feel better, but also incorporate into his swing so we don't make changes that negatively affect his golf swing and he feels even worse. And that's really, in my opinion, the biggest hurdle is, how do you improve somebody's function and mobility and make them feel better, but also get that translation into their golf swing so they don't say, hey, my golf swing feels terrible now that you fixed my ankle or my shoulder or whatever the case. And,
or worse, you screwed up my golf swing.
Or you get hit with one of those and you have to sit there and talk that one out. So that was definitely a part of our decisions. And again, like I said, communication was really important to me. So sitting down with not just him, but with Troy and everybody and kind of say, okay, this is what we found. And this is where we need to go. One, to get rid of the pain. Like at the end of the day, pain affects motor control, honestly, more than anything. Like it really, really, it's so hard to manage even the slightest pain in your body to try to do such a technical sport such as golf. So my number one concern was, can we just get rid of this pain and actually have him play 18 holes pain-free? I'd say that was my biggest goal in victory. So with 2 weeks, we went through the process and started really identifying, okay, we have pain, and how do we start fixing that on the front end? And luckily, we did a pretty good job getting him to actually be able to just swing, feel free, kind of, if you can set up to the ball and not even think about your pain, you're doing really well. So that was our approach from the first 2 weeks. And then once the PGA was over, we had a little bit more time. Well, there was a second major not too far after that, but for him to just dedicate time to strength and power and speed, which is kind of where we're at now. We're in this full swing off season. He's training just like any other athlete should in the off season. So right now you can't even tell he's a golfer, which is my favorite part.
Yeah, I love that. What were some of the things that you feel made the biggest impact on him, maybe either exercise-wise or technique-wise? I know you guys did some soft tissue, you did some isometric stuff, but for the people listening, some of these things are very helpful just to give them an idea of, hey, where would I maybe start for either the therapists that are listening or even somebody that has a little knowledge and goes to the gym themselves that they could kind of start working on a little.
Sure. I think one of the biggest things I learned with Dr. Spina has been a really big influence, I think, on our industry with not only his lecturing and the way he lectures, which I really appreciate. It gets your attention and it forces you to think outside the box, which I love. And what I really took away from that is we need to get the tissues to be able to handle a force, or the tissue threshold, if you will, high enough before they put a load on it that's going to exceed their tissue loading capacity, right? Which is how injuries happen. So one of the biggest things we did in those 2 weeks to really start hammering away was isometrics, and that was probably the most important part of the first 2 weeks. And I do them at not only in neutral positioning, but you have to put people in end ranges of the joint and then do some isometrics in those positions to really see what control they have. Because if you just lift your foot off the ground and go into inversion, and if I try to push you in eversion and if you can't withstand my finger, that's a problem. So we really started to build his tissue loading capacity in his ankle from the get-go. Like, we started from day one. We had just enough to where it was comfortable. I couldn't say it was comfortable. He hated me. This is probably the hardest part of his entire offseason is his ankle and exercises. But yeah, we got to the point where we can actually start loading, and within 2 weeks, the amount of resistance he could actually handle and with control was amazing. Like, I was even blown away myself with how fast we were, because we just did it so often. Every single day we need to get his ankle to be able to handle a little bit more load. And it all came down to the isometrics and active ranges of motion. I know Spina is really big on our hip cars and controlled articular rotations, taking all your joints through end ranges to keep them healthy. And we also did a lot of those for the ankle and hip to make sure we weren't missing anything up the chain. But it really came down to that ankle to say, okay, can you go into all these active end ranges and withstand some resistance? And we just did low level 10, 15 second isometrics. And I want everybody to try some of these isometrics and just understand how hard they are, because our ankles just don't get enough attention as is, just because we wear shoes all the time, and the more we sit, the less our ankles actually function like an ankle.
That's interesting that you say that, because I've really gotten into practice of teaching my clients, my family, my wife, even my son. I'm like, dude, we need to sit down and start doing your cars. And he's 8 years old. He's thinking, the movie Cars. But I like that you brought this up, because this will kind of reinforce to the people that I've been telling and the other listeners. And I think you're right. Dr. Spina has had a big impact on our industry, but just putting our body in those positions, because so often we're taught that if you're going to, let's take an ankle, for instance. I've rolled my ankle so many times playing soccer, and the idea is, well, let's just get it stronger in, the sideways motions. Some people listening may not know what inversion, eversion are, but let's stay out of those dangerous positions. Let's stay out of that. Just avoid that. Well, the case is, sometimes your body just may end up in that position, and if you've never experienced that, so if you've never been on the side of your foot and had your ankle in that stress position, odds are you're going to tear something. Something's going to go wrong. But if you've done some of these isometric exercises, or you've trained yourself to put your foot in that position, all of a sudden you can accept a little bit more of that load. And like you said, if you experience a load that's higher than your capacity to take in, that's where the injury occurs. And so me just starting to do some of those ankle exercises, the isometrics, and this could be your shoulder, this could be your hip, this could be anything. But if you go into those positions that are a little scary for you right now, but start putting a little bit of pressure in, it's amazing what can happen. And then just doing those rotations has been huge.
Yeah, and I think it's. I've even had some little success stories with some of even my high school golfers. I work with a couple high school kids in town and a team that are really super talented. And but one of my kids, just by doing some of these ankle isometrics, really teaching them how to. I mean, essentially, what we're teaching them is how to transmit force through the ankle and up towards the chain to be efficient and put energy into the ground, and we can actually use it. We saw a 4-inch increase in vertical jump in a week and a half of ankle stuff. And I mean, I like to kind of challenge coaches and therapists to think like, it's not always about the strength and speed and power of what might not be holding somebody back from jumping higher. Maybe they have a pretty good engine, they just don't know how to turn it on, or put the gas pedal, they're only putting it maybe 50% down and not 100%. So the isometrics really, I use them honestly as an assessment tool too. When I test isometric, their ability to withstand isometric resistance, because you'll know in 2 seconds, like even in a hip internal or external rotation, you can see the same thing. And it's a really easy assessment tool. Say, okay, we need to really start at least slowly progressing that. And the performance increases on the flip side of it have blown me away. Like, I was the old school thought of, okay, we need to get you jumping. We need to get, teach all these fundamentals of athleticism. And to me, my approach has changed drastically over the past maybe year or so, by focusing on the kind of end range function, the movement, the tissue, the ability of the tissue to actually withstand force and understand how to use it. Because I'm getting more rewards in the weight room than any old school let's just get stronger program. Because remember, I'm in the world of I need you to be a better golfer just as much as I need you to be a better athlete. Because at the end of the day, the golfer cares about, I need to play better golf. I don't care my deadlift got heavier. It's great, but I need to put the ball in the hole faster or hit it further or whatever the goal is. So the biggest bang for the buck has been kind of a combination of the both, which has been really cool.
That's crazy. I had never really thought about the improvements that you could see in something like a vertical jump, just because you're improving, basically the foundation. You're improving the structures that are going to hold that while it has to take on that force and then explode off of it. That's pretty awesome. All right, I like to, anytime I work or am talking with somebody that works with these super high level athletes, I like to ask, what is it about, somebody like Ryan or maybe a Charlie Hoffman or somebody that you've seen, even some of your basketball players, but let's say Ryan in particular, what is it about, him or his mentality, aside from just his skill level, that maybe you've noticed? What's like one trait that you've noticed is like, yeah, this is a high level athlete?
Definitely is, and this is across the board. I mean, even my LPGA girls, it comes down to a mindset on getting the work done and the importance of all of this stuff. Some athletes, just like all of us, don't understand obviously like how this stuff applies. We always battle that. I just need to be in the weight room and that's it. And I mean, granted, that's very, very important to be a high level athlete, but you have to check all of your movement boxes first. At least on some type of base level, a low threshold level. And basically all of them show up. And I tell this to all of my high school kids. I work with the UNLV college teams. And I tell them all the time, all of these people that I work with, whether it's baseball, basketball, it doesn't matter. They show up 25 minutes early. They stay 10 minutes later. It's not, and they're also training for 6 months from now. They don't think I'm just training for right now. They don't train for the moment. They always train for the Masters is coming up. I'm training for playoffs next season. And it's their vision is so far out there that it's very, very, you can just by talking to them for 5 minutes, you start getting inspired because you're like, man, they're like, this is why you do what you do. It's not, the workout's irrelevant. They'll do whatever the strength coach or therapist says, but in their head, they've been able to share with me like, no, this is why I do this. This is the 20 minutes early, the 10 minutes later, the consistency to get it done. I don't cancel my appointments. I show up. And on a more of a golf standpoint, since I work with way more golfers than anybody else, it's, I think the mentality and the approach to your golf game and understanding and accepting kind of what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are is where I think guys like Ryan really kind of separate themselves. He's the first person to say he's not a long hitter. And anybody that looks at stats, we know that. And it's not that he doesn't want to be longer. He understands how he scores and how to do it. And he's learned just by being on the PGA Tour for eight seasons. It's a process to learn about yourself. But he understands his strengths no matter what. If he's playing with a guy like DJ who hits it 40 yards by him every hole, he sticks to his own guns and says, no, this is how I'm playing it. And he doesn't let the better players, in my opinion, don't let the external factors start influencing their decision-making on the golf course. Which I've seen the exact opposite. And I've seen guys like Ryan who very, very, very consistent. I think he told me the other day that it was a really interesting stat that the golf ball is only airborne less than 5 minutes in an average PGA Tour round. So the golf ball is actually only moving for about 5 minutes or less.
No
total for 18 holes. Like let's say, and he said, if you really think about that, if you're on a golf course for 5 or 6 hours, what are you doing or thinking about the rest of the 5 hours and 55 minutes? If you have a long tournament round. So it really puts in perspective on I was really intrigued on how he thinks and operates, and he's a great tournament golfer. And so he's not the longest, but he knows how to work his way through it, which is something I think experience speaks for itself. And that's what he would say, from what I've learned is play more tournaments. You have to understand how you operate when you go to play a tournament golf or just a golf tournament in general, whether it's a member guest or PGA Tour,
Yeah.
So that's been a really, I'm personally fascinated by how these guys tick and what makes them who they are, besides they jump high or they hit it far. Like that's all cool. And it's almost expected in a way because they're good. But what make all those little external factors that make them who they are. And a lot of it comes down to their mindset, their approach. Because he says, okay, if the ball's only in flight 5 minutes, we should be doing just as much training in the areas of not hitting golf balls as we do hitting golf balls. But most people, we spend 99% of our time hitting golf balls. So it makes you think a little bit like, what else could you be doing to improve your golf game besides just going out to the driving range? And there's a ton. Yeah,
there's so much to it. And it kind of totally changes your perspective on, what you're doing out there. And we should be training when you're not hitting a golf ball, training that part of it too, so much more. Those guys just kind of think differently. They have a different perspective. And I think that goes with anybody that's super successful in whatever they do. They have that long-term goal in mind, whether that's business or, education or performance, those kinds of things. All right, let's get into what I kind of like to call now our John Daly round, which is, we've done the business in the front. Now we got a little party in the rear, having a little fun at the end here.
All right.
So first and foremost, Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore?
This is I know you asked this, and I even tried to prep for it a little bit because I really had to think about it. Like, I'm not kidding. I have a Caddyshack movie poster in my house. That's probably, I quote that one the most, so I have to. I'm a huge Adam Sandler fan, but I have to say Caddyshack.
Awesome. I think I fall kind of in the same category as you. I love my Adam Sandler, but Caddyshack. Yeah. All right. Now there's rumor on the street that you one time set your girlfriend's hair on fire.
Oh man,
is that true? And can you tell us the story?
Man, this is awesome. She's gonna love this.
Somebody threw you under the bus on this one.
Yes. So and we're still together. For everybody that's doubting my ability to impress, but no, it was actually our second or third date, and this was 5 years ago. We've been together for 5 years now at this point. But second or third date, we're at a nightclub here in Vegas because that's what I did when I wasn't working as much. And basically, we're dancing. I'm trying to really impress her, and we're on the bar. There's all these candles. Now, naturally, when you're at a nightclub scene, you think that they're fake, right? I would assume they're fake. So we're dancing, and we're definitely drinks were flowing as well. So I'm not going to say I was the most. My motor skill acquisition was very small. But so essentially, I turn her and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be very, very, very slick. And I grab her and I try to dip her. And as I've taken a few salsa and dance lessons. I thought I'm going to be really cool here. I dip her over the bar, and she had really long hair, kind of down to like her mid back. And the second I dip her over the bar, like these were real candles, and she had so much hair product and all this stuff in her hair, obviously. And we were going out, and this thing just caught like it was in. I couldn't even react. I flip her up, and my best friend sprints over and starts basically punching her in the head to try to get the fire out. And at this point, I'm kind of like, what's happening? I was like trying to put the pieces together, and then all of a sudden, all the smoke and the burnt hair smell, which everybody knows that what that smells like. And I for sure thought that was my last time I was going to ever see this girl. And I kind of said, oh, well, it's nice meeting you. I'm sorry I did that. And we took off at least 6 to 8 inches of her hair.
Oh my God.
Easy. And any girls listening, I think you can understand how frightening that is. So it was a big test. And I always say it was the spark in our relationship when this gets brought up, usually by her family, but it's something that like we look back now, but yes, I took off half of my girlfriend's hair, on our third date. So I'm not proud, but I gotta go with it at this point.
Nice. All right, back to a little more unpersonal type stuff, unembarrassing stories, I should say. If you had a chance to play 18 holes of golf with anyone in the world, past, present, or future, doesn't have to be somebody in the world of golf. Who would it be? Why would you pick them? And where would you play?
Oh, wow. So anybody in the world. Okay, so I would have to say my grandfather. One, because I never had a chance to meet him, just stories from my family, my mom. But he was the one in our family he's the golf passion guy. He's the one that, according to my mom, and it's my mom's dad, but according to my mom, he was the one I was going to really have a good relationship with because of golf, because I was a golf nut growing up. And through junior golf, I just loved it. And he went to the Masters every year. He was the golf guy. So the fact that I never really got a chance to build a relationship with him, and I would for sure play Augusta National if ever given the opportunity with him. And that's the reason. Honestly, just because it's more of a sentimental thing. We would have been for sure best friends through the game of golf, which is always cool.
I love that. All right, with everything that you're doing at Anthem and the work you're doing with your PGA, LPGA players, what would you say is kind of your mission as you continue to build your practice, build your profession, and just as you start working with so many athletes? I think my main mission is with all my players is to be curious and be motivated on what's possible with yourself, and whether it's in a performance setting, business, doesn't matter. But I really preach to my athletes, like, you should be curious to actually say, am I getting the most out of in my world, my body physically, or are you really doing what's possible for yourself? And I think if you don't think like that, if you don't think big, and you don't really have those scary, crazy goals of I want to win 2 of the 4 majors, like, you should think like that. And I want them to think like that, because
I think Ryan's a great example. I think if you would have said, "Hey, man, your last 8 weeks of the season was, in my opinion, a PJ Tour almost career high in a way of saying you performed great." Would you have guessed that? And you said, "No way. I never would have thought I would play a Ryder Cup right now." Like, but you did. And I try to get all my athletes to say, "Hey, like, really, really, really just dream big." I know Jason Glass is awesome. I love his dream big, over deliver. But I really want my athletes to start thinking like that, because we can say it all day long as coaches and support, but when you get an athlete that really dreams big and puts the work in, that's the kind of magic. And I try to just instill that in all my athletes, saying, I don't just make the team, like be the number one on the team, or go to the better college golf program if you can make it, or if it's a top 10, go for the top 5. Like it's having that hunger, and that, to me, the best players really succeed. I like the only thing where, the whole fear thing is don't be afraid to go there. You're only gonna improve if you fail. So I really hammer that with everybody. When we're goal setting is a big part of my process with guys like Ryan or my whoever. And when we start talking about these things, I try to nudge them a little more and say, don't be too conservative. There's obviously you want to kind of know, but to me, I once I get to the core of my athlete and I kind of know what really makes them wake up early to come work out, and if it's a green jacket, if it's a whatever, once you can identify that with people, you are such a powerful part of their process to get there, and they understand that. So, and again, it comes down to communication, but I really harp on people to write them down. I want to see these things. Like, let's go for it. And just going to keep doing that as I go forward. And the more people I get to help and have a chance to help, and I'm going to do my best to do it.
Awesome, man. Well, I see a lot of big things in your future with the work that you're doing, and the people that you're working with, and the success they're having, and the success they will have in the future. So first of all, congratulations on just everything that you have going on.
Thank you.
Where can everybody kind of follow you or Anthem, or where is the best place to get to know you? I will definitely put your article from TPI in the show notes so they can go there to follow that, and we'll link up. But where's the best place they can find you?
Yeah, sure. I'm not the best social media wizard. Or text messenger, as I'm reminded of a lot. So honestly, I try to just master one platform, and I'm trying to do that with Instagram. So if anybody has Instagram, I'm trying to post daily on there, and I've done a pretty good job lately. But yeah, it's connected to my Twitter, so it's basically just mirroring my Instagram, but I'm not a big Facebooker or anything. So the best way to just follow along, I post a ton of stuff on what I'm doing in the gym. You'll see a lot of stuff with K-Vest. You'll see a lot of stuff with how I'm assessing. I post a lot of all work stuff on there. And my handle is @B Chandler, so CHANDLA1. And I'm sure you'll be able to put it on there so they can read it. And and I just started writing for Breaking Muscle. So if any readers who read Breaking Muscle, it's great content. There's great coaches on there.
Yeah.
So I'm putting some stuff together for a golf department on that side of things. So that's been a really big project that I'm putting together to put out articles for golf people to learn how to improve. So look out for Breaking Muscle articles. And then,
awesome.
That's about it.
Well, let me know when some of that stuff hits, because we'll share all that on 18 Strong. We'll definitely go to your Instagram and start reposting some stuff. And just want to say, you're doing a great job. I love the work you're doing. The more I hear about you and talk about other people who know you, nothing but good things have been said. So I want to let you know that. But thanks again for coming on the show. I know it took a little time out of your day, but 18 Strong is going to love this episode, I guarantee. So we'll talk to you very soon, my man.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
All right. As you can see, they did a ton of work in order to get Ryan Moore back on the course and playing at 100%, playing the way that he wasn't able to play before because of the things that he had going on in his body. So my question to you is, what is that's going on with you, whether that be your nutrition, a physical ailment, an injury? What's your weakest link that you need to figure out what it is, how to tackle it, and get over it so you can make 2017 the best year of golf that you've ever played. Brian, if you're listening, I want to thank you for coming on the show, and hopefully I didn't embarrass you or your girlfriend too much with our rapid-fire round questions, but it was definitely a pleasure to get to know you, and I look forward to connecting with you much more in the future. If you guys want any more information on Brian or Anthem Fitness, just go to 18strong.com, check out episode number 120, search for Brian in the search bar, and you'll definitely find him and all the links of everything that we talked about on the show. As I mentioned, we have an incredible year coming up with 2017. We've got some amazing sponsors on board, including Rad Roller and Super Speed Golf, which we've talked about many times on the show. And we have another big sponsor that we can't quite tell you who they are yet, but we're working on finalizing everything there. But as I mentioned, we have some great partnerships coming up, and I just can't wait to see where this show goes over the next 12 months. So thank you so much for supporting us here on 18 Strong. As always, we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. If you haven't left a review and you've been listening to the show for a while, by all means, please, we would love for you to post a review, and we love reading those and seeing what you guys are saying, how we can make this show a little bit better and give you what the information and the guests that you want. So thanks again for joining me. Train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong podcast at www.18strong.com. And remember, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.